NRL Round 1. It's been 151 days since we saw Penrith smash Parramatta in the grand final. I'm ready for some full throttle action. Are you? What's going on, guys? Bergs from The Casual Athlete here, and today I'm going to be taking you through the team lists for round 1, some notable changes, and the predictions for each game. So, without further ado, let's get into Melbourne versus Parramatta. Parramatta have got a different back row to the one that started in the grand final, and it's looking pretty thin at the moment. You've got a 9-game kind of rookie in Jermaine Hopgood. You got Matt Dury, a bit of an unproven commodity, and you've also got journeyman Bryce Cartwright. Now, they're going to be backed up by not a great bench either. If you look at it at this point in time, it's Jarai Momasia, who they acquired from the Knights. Wiramu Greg, who actually showed a lot of promise before coming into first grade and really hasn't taken that next step. And Jack Murchie, though, on the other hand, I think is a great addition to their bench. And the notable Makahesi Makatoa, who was there through a lot of games last season. I'm still a bit unsure about Brad Arthur's bench usage and how he plans to use these guys. It looks like he's going to be expecting Josh Hodgson to play about 80 minutes. Not sure how I'd go with a guy who hasn't really played a lot of footy in the last couple of years, but we'll see how it goes. On the flip side, you've got Melbourne. Now, they're going to be playing away here with Parramatta playing their game at CommBank Stadium, and a couple of noticeable outs. You know, you've got Pappenhausen. He's going to be out until about round 8 or 10. You've got Munster coming in under a bit of an injury cloud. That's noticeable. Tarek Sims is also out, and I thought he would be a great pickup to, you know, kind of bolster the back rowers that they lost in Felice Kafusi and Kenny Bromwich. But, you know, he's out for a couple of weeks, and Josh King gets the start at lock. And Trent Loiero, another guy who we haven't seen too much of, has jumped in there in the second row. This run is such a coin toss for me. So many guys who are either coming back from injury or are out. I think Parramatta lose a lot in Sean Lane, but their halves, and for both teams, are the story here. You've still got Cameron Munster and Jarome Hughes, and you've still got Dylan Brown and Mitchell Moses. So I think my prediction is going to swing in the way of Parramatta on this one. I think they get it done barely. But it's going to come down to those guys like Gutherson. I'm not sure how much Melbourne are going to get out of Meaney at the back. Welch coming back off a pretty serious injury. I back the Parramatta boys to get a bit of revenge. They need to come out strong and show that they are not to be messed with and they can still be considered a title threat this year. On to the second game of the round now, and we've got the Warriors playing the Knights over at Sky Stadium in Wellington. Great news for the Warriors as they finally get to play the first game of the season back at home since the 2019 season. I am interested to see how they progress. The Warriors did show me in pre-season that they were really up for the fight this year, and I think being back at home gives them an extra incentive. You know, it empowers these blokes to really go out there and play their absolute asses off every week. So they're coming up against a Knights side that's experienced a couple of little changes coming into this season. There's no Dane Gagai there. He's pretty serviceable, although people tend to forget that he wasn't at his best last year. I struggle to see why Kalen Ponga has moved to 6 at this point in time. And, you know, you got Lockie Miller there at the back. I think he's really got to play there. But Ponga, for me, is going to be the best option for Queensland at number 1. Why isn't he the best option for the Knights at number 1? So I worry about him a lot defending in the front line. He's going to be getting hit a lot by, you know, Marata Niokore, a guy that the Warriors picked up, and that's something that I can't really overlook in this game. I think the other big thing to note here is that the Knights finally have close to a full roster to start the season. Kurt Mann is back in. He had a few injuries last year. Jaden Brayley is finally starting again at number 9. And we forget that the Knights last year, they actually won their first 2 games of the season. So they looked hot early and really crashed late. I just want to see some stability there from the Knights early. Even if they lose this game to the Warriors, which I think they will, I don't want to see them lose big, because if they lose to the Warriors big, we're going to be talking about them again and again and again. Every week it's going to be a little turnstile, and turnstile could be the word that we use to describe Kalen Ponga by the end of the season if he keeps missing tackles. So he's really got to shore up that defence. I think the other loss for the Warriors, though, was Luke Metcalf. He was looking pretty good to get that, that 6 or 7 jersey. They put in, a very experienced halves pairing there with Tamari Martin and Sean Johnson. So I actually see these two bettering Kalen Ponga and Jackson Hastings. I know, call me crazy, but I think the Warriors get it done, 1-12, and possibly a Sean Johnson field goal is in there. And now the game we've all been waiting for, the 8 o'clock game on Friday night, round 1, out at Bluebet Stadium in Penrith. We've got the Panthers taking on Brisbane, and boy, this is going to be a pretty good matchup. Brisbane looking pretty strong this preseason, beat the Cowboys. Selwyn Cobbo has just made a move to fullback, which is very interesting to me. He could be that, that Greg Inglis, Latrell Mitchell type player if he gets his hands on the ball and wants it more than anyone else. So kick returns, Panthers are going to have to be on high alert. Penrith, there's a couple of changes. Sunia Taruva gets the spot on the wing, as we all thought he would. There's a bit of chatter about them potentially getting Dom Young. Don't know where that's come from, but he was looking to get out of the Knights pretty quickly and potentially go to Penrith. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Still could happen. Ezra maintains his spot at 6, which I love to see. Jesse Arthurs comes onto the wing for the Brisbane Broncos as well, and has to be that serviceable player. Needs to not make his mistakes, take his runs from kick returns, and just play to the game plan. Back up Corey Oates, back up Cobbo, and he should be right. And just score your tries. If the line's open, score your tries. So Jesse Arthur's been around for a while. He should be able to do that. And the other thing for me is Luke Garner gets the spot over Zach Hosking. Now, this edge forward role has been heavily debated over this preseason. Will Scott Sorensen get the role? Will Zach Hosking take over the role and take on his old team round 1? But it's ultimately gone to Tigers player Luke Garner, and I don't mind it. I think he's probably the best option there. He's great in attack. A little bit lacking on defence, probably not as good as Kickow, and it's very hard to replace a guy like Billy Kickow, but I think he's going to do a pretty good job there for Penrith this season, and they've got, as I said, noticeable backups there. This is a tough one to call for me. Both teams look pretty full strength. I think Penrith have taken a bit of a hit in the hooker area, but the Broncos don't really have the strongest hooker in there at the moment with Billy Walters and then Corey Pakes on the bench. And then we've also got, on the Penrith side of things, we have Mitch Kenny and Sonny Luke on the bench. So both teams not really going with a 80-minute hooker. Carrying a specialist hooker is very interesting. I find it so hard to see that Penrith let him go, Api Coruscant, that is. And, we'll see the fruits of their labour this year. Penrith, they got spanked a little bit. They got their pants pulled down in the World Club Challenge. So I think they'll be raring to go in this one. And out at Penrith, sometimes they're borderline unstoppable. So I'm picking Penrith to win this one, but I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. NRL Super Saturday is back, and it starts out at Brookie, Four Pines Park in Sydney, where Manly are going to be taking on the Dogs. And I think this Manly side showed a little bit of oomph in the preseason trials. The Dogs, however, have also gotten better this year. So for me, this game's a real toss-up. And, the teams that the Dogs produced last year weren't, I guess, up to par. Josh Adokar had a bit of a slow start to the season. Burton, slow start. I wouldn't be expecting that this year. They've picked up Kickow, they've picked up Reed, and they're going to hit the ground running. Notable out for the Dogs that's just come through as well is that Luke Thompson is going to be out for a solid period of the year after breaking his ankle in training, and that's just got to put a dagger through the heart of some Dogs fans because they need prop forwards now, and it's looking pretty thin as far as I can see. So with that, Max King will maintain his front rower starting spot. We have Ryan Sutton, who actually comes in to the prop position to join him there. And then on the bench, we've got Franklin Pele, Corey Waddell, and Jacob Preston, who was actually pretty impressive in the trials. The other thing from the Dogs that I'd like to note is Paul Alamotti. The young rookie starts his career on Saturday by the looks of things, and I've heard a lot about this kid. I've seen a lot of highlights videos. If you have free time at 3 p.m. on Saturday, make sure you watch this kid, because he's also going to be going up against one of the other great young up-and-comers in our game, and that is Tolutau Kula. Kula had a great season last year, but it wasn't phenomenal. I think Manly towards the end of the year struggled to get him the ball, and he showed once he gets the ball in space, he's borderline unstoppable, just got speed and can absolutely burn people. So Kula on the right, taking on Alamotti on the left for the Dogs. It's going to be a bloodbath out there at Brookie. Jacob Carraz moves to the wing. I thought he would get one of those centre positions, but clearly an aerial threat, and from kick returns, you can't really ask for a better player. He just runs like his life depends on it, so he doesn't care who's in his way. And I think the two big surprises out of this team list that have been released is that Tom Trbojevic is going to start at fullback for Manly, something I didn't expect to see. And then we also have Cooper Johns, the man who was on a train and trial, has now earned himself a starting spot ahead of Josh Schuster being injured. At this point in time, I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I did not expect to see Trbojevic as early as he has been seen. And on the other side of things, the Dogs, with that loss of Luke Thompson and, Hayes Perham is going to be taking a while to get things going. We don't know if he's going to be a long-term fix there with Stephen Crichton coming next year. So he's really playing for his NRL career at the moment. I like Cherry Evans over Kyle Flanagan, but I like Burton over Cooper Johns any day of the week. So real toss-up in the halves. And then you got Reed Marnie taking on Lachlan Croker. Lachlan Croker, potentially one of the most underrated players last year. Huge toss-up, guys, but I got to go with Manly out at Brookie. I think they get the job done. And for the Dogs, they'll be left to lick their wounds for another week. NRL Super Saturday continues up in North Queensland next at 5:30, where we've got the Cowboys taking on the Raiders. We're taking the cold weather team up to the north, and we're going to pummel them in front of our home fans, or at least I hope so. Both teams relatively unchanged. I think the big change we've got to look at is Xavier Savage being out for the start of this year, around 6 to 7 weeks. So Sebastian Chris has actually taken on that role. Not a position that I would have thought he would be playing. I would have potentially gone with a guy like Jordan Rapana, who's played a lot of fullback before. And I think I read somewhere in the week that he's 33 now. He doesn't want to be taking all those extra runs, making all that extra meters. He's getting a little tired for that sort of thing. He just wants to play on his wing, which is interesting. I thought you would do something to, help out the team when the team's in need. But interesting pick. I'm not sure Sebastian Chris would have been my first guy off the rank. I thought maybe Nick Kotrick could have also filled in there, but we'll see how it pans out. Cowboys largely unchanged, aside from Luciano Leilua being unable to sort out his off-field dramas at this point in time. So Cohen Hess is actually the guy who's going to be slotting into a position that he's all too familiar with, where he scored 11 tries in one season back when, dinosaurs roamed the earth. Hess, though, on the other hand, pretty serviceable fill-in, and I'm sure he won't be too out of place in the second row there. For the Cowboys, being at home is extremely important to start the year. We definitely benefited off a lot of home games last year and made the most of it. So I'm hoping we can do a lot better than we did in round one last year, where we lost to the Dogs in a 6-4 absolute bore fest. So I'm hoping that this game is a little bit more exciting. I think we get the job done over Canberra. Yes, I think their forward pack is strong, but missing Josh Papali'i is going to hurt them a little bit. I think Tarpany's going to have to carry the load. And Danny Levi gets the start at number 9, which I find bizarre considering how high they were on guys like Zach Wolford and Tom Starling. But Tom Starling moves to the bench, and, we'll see how it all pans out. But I think the Cowboys get this one done pretty comfortably. Rounding out Super Saturday for round 1, we have the 7:30 match with the Sharks taking on the Rabbitohs. And I think you can remember the last time these guys met, the Rabbitohs got the job done, but we also encountered a golden point thriller with these two teams, so don't expect the action to go anywhere. The sad thing for the Sharks, though, is they're going to be missing playmaker and Dally M medalist Nicho Hynes, whose injury is worse than we first thought. He's going to be out for possibly 3 to 4 weeks to start the season now, and largely unchanged Rabbitohs side. They've got rid of Tane Milne. They're backing the youngster in Isaac Thompson there, and also youngster Isaiah Tass in the centres gets the start there with a full pre-season of playing in that position under his belt. I think they're going to be stronger for it. They're going to be taking on 2 beast centres in Jesse Ramian and Talakai, and you've got to restrict those guys, otherwise things could get out of hand for the Rabbitohs pretty quickly. The big thing for me here is I can't really go past the Sharks halves. It's Matt Moylan and Braden Trindle. Braden Trindle, while pretty good for the Jets last year, I think he looked to break into that first grade side, but Matt Moylan locked down the role and earned himself a new contract, so a lot of responsibility is going to be on Braden Trindle's shoulders this week and maybe for the next couple of weeks. They got rid of Luke Metcalf as well, so he's really the next guy up and he's got to earn that spot. I find it interesting as well that Wade Graham has now been pushed to the bench and Teague Wilton will start in his place, which I think is good for Teague. He's been very good and up and coming for the last couple of years, and good to see him get a start there. Not saying that Wade Graham doesn't have anything left. He's still a very good player, but I think age does come into it a little bit, and potentially Wade playing all those minutes isn't beneficial to his body and potentially the Sharks' game plan. So, with that being said, this one's a tough one for me, but I've got to go with the boys in red and green. The Rabbitohs, I think they get this one done pretty comfortably. At least they should, without Hynes. I don't see the Sharks' attacking game plan coming to fruition. A lot of it revolves around Nicho Hynes, so if he's not there, then they've got to find something else to do. And really, this Rabbitohs team is built to win a premiership now and be solid now. So I think they're not going to find many cracks, and I think the Rabbitohs get it done pretty easily. The first Sunday of the NRL year is always a special occasion, and this year we've got the debut of the NRL's newest team, the Redcliffe Dolphins. They'll be playing the Roosters at Suncorp. Now, the team list that the Roosters and Dolphins have put out, a couple of little interesting changes. I think Manu being out for a couple of weeks, the Roosters are going to be able to deal with that. Corey Allen isn't the best replacement, in my opinion, but he's played a little bit of Origin. He's got a bit of experience there. I think he'll be, able to contain Branko Lee or Ewan Aitken, depending on what side he plays. They might throw Suali'i over to the right side, which is a position that he played a lot when he was at school and in the younger grades as well. The big thing for me, for this Dolphins side, is that Anthony Milford will not be starting. The MILF, he's gone. And Isaiah Katoa gets his start. The 19-year-old, what a day for rugby league. I think Isaiah, and I mentioned it in a TikTok just gone as well, that he has all the talent in the world. Kicked the winning field goal in Jersey Flegg last year after a extra time thriller against the Knights, and played for Tonga at such a young age. He took over the team and directed them around the park, and he's also going to be playing with Sean O'Sullivan, his Penrith teammate last year. So I think that is kind of erred on the side of Wayne Bennett's decision here. He's gone with 2 guys who know each other a little bit. Sean O'Sullivan has a solid kicking game and can also kick goals as well. Although I think they may give that role to Osako, because to be fair, he is a pretty good kicker. But it's hard to see with this Dolphins team. I think we're going to take about 5, maybe 6 rounds to get to know them and get to know how they're going to play, which could work to their advantage. They could surprise the Roosters this week and come up and blow them off the park. Like, that would absolutely knock everyone's opinion of them back, because I think the Dolphins are being considered cellar dwellers already, and they haven't even played a game in the NRL. So we'll see how they turn out. Their forward pack is looking pretty strong. While aged, it is still looking pretty strong. I really like guys like Tom Gilbert being in there. Really gritty player. Gets under the skin of the opponents and is just, a menace out on the field, making every tackle, doing everything he can for his team. Roosters, on the other hand, Keary comes in I thought he might have been under a bit of an injury cloud, but he looks to have passed his concussion protocols and everything seems to be above board there. They've made a few signings in the week, which tells me that this could be the year where Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, possibly his last year, depending on where they want to see Spencer Leniu play. I think Brandon Smith is a pretty good pickup, but also Jeremy Marshall-King had a very good year last year. But Dolphins, I don't want to be negative, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, I picked the Roosters to win the minor premiership this year and potentially go all the way and win that grand final as well. So I'm going to have to stick to my preseason pick, and I think the Roosters get this one done comfortably. Sorry, Dolphins fans, but I need to see a little bit more. And finally, the matchup of the two T's. TT, if you want to call it. The 6 o'clock game on Sunday night. We have the Tigers taking on the Titans. And by God, if it's anything like the game that they played last year, I will never watch these teams again. No, I'm kidding. I think that the Tigers have made some pretty decent changes to their roster this season. Although Charlie Staines getting the start really intrigued me, especially with guys like, you got Jojo Fafita and, Khan Pereira on the wings for the Titans. There's some big boys. And, Montoya, we saw the trial game. Staines, came across in cover, couldn't make the tackle, and, basically got essentially posterized. And that's what we call, NBA dunks, where people dunk over the top of other people. He got posterized by Marcelo Montoya. Although I think that this Tigers team, they've finally got the halves right. They should be Brooks and Dewey, and finally it's been decided that it's going to be Brooks and Dewey to start the year. Thank the fucking Lord. I'm really interested to see what Dewey can do, especially. I think, if Brooks just plays his natural game, he should be able to service Dewey quite well, and also provide Isaiah Papali'i with some good running lanes, and he should have the ability to attack and attract defenders as well. And that should open up the door for guys like Tommy Talau. We saw Tommy Talau go pretty well in the trials, and if he's going to be playing that right centre spot or that right wing spot with guys like David Norfoluma, then I think it could work out really well for the Tigers this year. I think it may take a little time to get going, but after that, it should be a pretty well-oiled machine. They're still waiting on John Bateman to get into the side as well. He only arrived pretty recently, so he needs to get into match fitness and needs to get maybe that jet lag over the line. Api Coruscant is a standout. Both teams with new hookers, Api Coruscant and Sam Verrills. I think the Tigers have definitely won that trade. Coruscant being one of the best hookers in the game for the last couple of years. It's really no match for guys like Sam Verrills. Although Sammy Verrills did score a try in a grand final, and that went a long way to them winning that grand final as well. Sean Blore is the other guy that intrigues me here. Been talked about for a number of years. Has had a few injuries to start his NRL career, but has been heavily hyped. Guys like Kelma Tuolangi came in, Tigers couldn't make him quite work, so now he's off to Manly. Sean Blore, very similar trajectory, that he impressed at the lower levels of the game in juniors, bit of an unstoppable force, and then has had injury after injury over the last couple of years, and it's really stunted his growth. So I think him getting the start this week really shows that the Tigers have put a lot of faith in this kid and they want to see it work. So in saying that though, the Titans have got a pretty decent forward pack. Guys like Tino, Fafita is back in the starting side where he belongs. Bo Fermor had a great year last year. They're bringing guys like Mo Fotuaika off the bench. I can't believe that. Mo Fotuaika is a very good forward, very good prop as well. So to bring him off the bench shows that they've got some faith in guys like Jamin Jolliffe, who performed pretty well for Ireland, even at the World Cup just gone as well. Tanner Boyd and Foran are very interesting halves for me. I see them both as sixes, really, but Tanner Boyd actually tends to go pretty well when he gets that starting role, either at halfback or 5'8". So we'll see that play out. And Tanner Boyd's had some pretty good success at the lower levels of the game, and then also lower representative levels in juniors as well. Moving on to the bench for these two teams, it's not really anything too different from what we saw last year, although the Tigers are carrying a winger on the bench. I'm not sure whether that is to cover for Charlie Staines. I can only think it might be, in case they have to hook him. But, if you have faith in the guy starting, then, you don't need a guy who can play his position on the bench. So I think it could be a potential wasted bench spot, or it could be just injury cover. So we'll see how the Tigers want to play that one out. And Jaden Campbell on the bench for the Titans is going to be a huge positive for him. He brings a lot of energy when he comes on, and I think he could be a game breaker. If this game is looking pretty close, I'd probably look to Jaden Campbell to see if we can make something happen. Maybe a loose lock roll, maybe shove him into hooker, see if he can get some stuff going. He's a real live wire, and I think you can't keep him out of the game for too long. Otherwise, the win kind of falls by the wayside. And I'm actually going to be picking the Titans here for this game. It's an upset. It's a minor upset, just considering what the Tigers, did last year in terms of signings. But I just see the Titans getting it together a bit quicker this year. And the Tigers, I think they could take a couple of rounds just to get everything moving, but they need to keep in their structures and stick with it. But for me, the Titans are getting the win here and starting off their season better than they finished it last year. So that's it for the team list for round one, guys. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and let us know your tips as well. I'm very interested to hear that. If you like the video, please make sure to give us a like and subscribe. We are bringing out a ton of content in the next few weeks, potentially with some other creators as well. So stay tuned for that.